Hi, welcome to Latinas from the Block to the Boardroom. This is Teresa Gonzalez, and we are coming to you live from Ceja Vineyards in Napa Valley. Today's podcast will feature Amelia and Dalia Ceja talking about their journey of their family in the vineyards to the global wine industry here in Napa Valley. So grab your favorite glass of vino and let's get ready to hear their story. No, it's okay. It's mother-daughter. I get it. You know,
We just came back from Yosemite.
Oh, yes. Okay. So I love Yosemite. Welcome. Let's see. Welcome to the middle of California. Is that your first time there in Yosemite?
This was not. This was actually, goodness, we've been several times, throughout, my childhood and whatnot, but this was our fourth time being invited through the Ahwahnee Vintners holiday.
Oh, that's what it was, the Vintners holiday.
Yes, it was started 38 years ago to bring in tourism to Yosemite Valley in the late fall and also early winter. Mm-hmm. And it's become like an amazing, successful set of events. Mm-hmm. This year they're hosting 6 sessions and we were session number 2. And the title of our session was Goddesses of the Grape. There were
Goddesses
3
of the
other
Grape.
amazing vintners who have also revolutionized the wine industry in their own way, as we have as well.
But women vintners, which is even more impactful.
Right, the woman vintner. So that's what I want to talk about today is how the Ceja family came to be as a family-owned, land-owned here in California, Napa Valley, and having such a strong presence also in the community. Amelia, from your workers' rights roots in Dolores Huerta, being friends and knowing her, right? And just also having that experience. I'd love to talk a little bit about how the Ceja family came from Mexico, as a lot of, we call them the migrant families that come here. So my family, actually my grandmother and all of her family came and they picked grapes in the Central Valley, but they picked fruit too. So they picked whatever the season was. But her mom died when she was young, so they got split up. And then my grandmother had to take care of, with her sisters, the rest of the siblings. There were 11 of them. And they were all in the fields. And so the state took them and they separated them. And so there's that aspect of our family that as farm workers, they could not be a family together. But they picked, and my grandmother never finished school. And so my mom, was the only girl out of, 4 brothers, and they were in Fresno. So that's my experience with the farm workers and farm community and having that background and coming up here and being in tech and starting this business. So I think you have that same story with your daughter, and that's what I want to hear today. So welcome.
Thank you. We are so honored, to be sharing our own story. And for us, it's about empowering women and women from around the world. So that's been so crucial, for me personally as a millennial to share our story and to inspire the next generation.
Yes, absolutely. So Amelia, I would love for you to talk about the family coming and hearing.
Well, I'm an immigrant. I came to the Napa Valley in 1967 from the state of Jalisco. And this in Napa is where I met my future husband, Pedro. So it's actually 2 families that came here. One from Jalisco and one from Michoacan, because Ceja Vineyards was founded by myself and my husband, who's Ceja, and his younger brother, Armando. So 2 families that arrived here in 1967. My father was a vineyard worker. He actually was a foreman in Oakville Vineyard Management Company, and it was harvest time, and he asked me, Mija, do you want to go and see what I do? And I said, of course. I had only been here a few days. And meantime, my husband's family had arrived as well, and they desperately needed a job because They actually lived in a barn in Youngville for about 10 days because my husband's family is very large. At the time, there were 7 children plus the 2 parents, so 9. And fortunately, our fathers knew each other. And my husband's dad, Pablo, called my dad and said, hey, I just brought my family and we need a job. So my dad said, hey, come this weekend. I'm going to bring my own children to pick grapes. So that's how I was introduced to grape growing and to also meeting my future partners. And I fell madly in love with the entire industry. Plus, I made money for myself because we were paid depending upon how many buckets of grapes we harvested. And I think I made around a little bit of like maybe $350. And I felt rich because I was translating it into pesos.
Right.
But I did. I told my father that I was going to have a vineyard of my own someday.
Intention setting right there.
Yes, and my father said, of course you will. I didn't speak a word of English.
Oh, wow. But yet you did it, and here you are.
Well, it was a sentiment that was also felt by Pedro, my husband, and his family. And fast forward to 1980 when we were married, we spent every weekend coming to Napa and Sonoma, looking at properties, and people thought we were nuts because we didn't have any money. But that didn't deter us. In 1983, an offer on this property, and we bought it in April 1983.
Wow.
But we didn't take into account that it was going to cost us tens of thousands of dollars to develop this property into a vineyard because it's very costly per acre. And we had to wait until 1986, and when my brother-in-law Armando finished school at UC Davis, he was going to school there at the time, and we almost lost the property in between because the interest rates were at like 17%. Yes, and we were forced to move back to Napa so that we could save this property because at the time Pedro and I lived in Silicon Valley.
Oh, okay.
Yes, Pedro started engineering, and then when we purchased our first property in 1983, we had 2 kids, and then by 1985 we had 3. Dalia was a baby.
That was just a little one.
Yeah. So we moved back to Napa in 1985, and Pedro continued working in Silicon Valley, so he would commute 90 miles each way to work in
Traffic
Milpitas.
was not nearly as bad as it is today, so just probably got here a lot quicker.
No, it still took him minimum a couple of hours, so he left very early and he came home late. But finally, in 1986, we were able to plant the vineyard. Our first harvest was in 1988, and since then we knew that eventually we wanted to release our own brand under our own name. But we all had a day job and we were all very busy. And with the profit that we got from the harvest, we actually invested it into buying more properties. But by the mid-1990s, we already had around 115 acres. And then we said, okay, we can start thinking about now launching our own brand. And in 1999, I left my job in the wine industry. And I spent the entire summer learning about how to do business as. And in September 1999, I filed the articles of incorporation. And that's when my partner selected me president of Ceja Vineyards. And I became the first Mexican-American woman ever elected president of a winery in the world. Quite historical.
It is, and I'm so happy to be here in your presence. Yeah, you're lucky. So one of the things you said so many wonderful things that I like to highlight in this, because one of the most important things I think you said was you had your own money when you were very little. You made your own money, and that gave you a feeling of you made that money and it was yours. And you were going to do something with it that gave you kind of freedom in a way, right? So talk about like what that means, because again, you did that in this reiteration or this second time of making your own money and reinvesting it to keep the land, right, with your husband and partners. So what did that teach you something back then? And do you think it was just something you learned on your own, or was it from the work, or was it that your dad or your mom said, you have to make this money because this is going to be yours someday? Like, what was the trigger?
Well, I've always been an independent child since I was born. Even in Mexico, I actually had little odd jobs. I'm working with my grandfather and my uncle, and I didn't make a lot of money, but it felt great to be able to buy things for myself from monies that I had earned.
Yeah.
And that was transferred to here as well. But what was really important is that I learned from the UFW, the United Farm Workers Union, because I was introduced to Dolores and Cesar Chavez at a young age as well, is that unity is power.
Yes.
And collaboration, and a lot of people focusing on the same goal is a lot easier to achieve than just one person alone.
Yes.
So we knew that we couldn't do it by ourselves, just Pedro and me, just because interest rates were very high and we didn't have the financial resources, but we could pool our resources together, which we did with Pedro's parents, Juanita and Pablo, and Armando's knowledge, because at the time he was a very poor student at UC Davis, but he had a lot of knowledge.
Yes.
And that we were able to actually purchase our first property here in Carneros. But it took that understanding that it does take an instinct and a desire, but also be willing to work together with people that have the same goals as you do.
Right. And I think that's so powerful in saying that collectively you come together to make that a reality. Because right now, right, we're the largest community, and yet we're still very separated in our own ways of how we want to do things a certain way. And if we come together collectively, we can really move a lot of big needles, I want to say, in the market.
Well, and what happened, like just here in Napa Valley, when in the 70s, finally the UFW took hold, and my father was the first president of Napa Valley Vineyards management company when all the workers voted to have representation by the union. It was great because the lives of all of these workers changed dramatically forever, in that now they were actually able to secure unemployment insurance. They were also able to get medical insurance. Plus, they were also able to collectively, if something was unfair, to use that unity and go on strike to achieve the union's goals. And as it is today, even though there are now maybe only a couple of companies that still remained under the UFW contracts, Napa and Sonoma, because of that influence of the UFW, are the two highest paid counties for agricultural workers in the United States.
Wow.
And workers are treated very differently too. I mean, there are more rights, and so unity is definitely gives you power, and in any type of industry, not just agriculture.
Yes.
So the tech industry can definitely also vote to have union representation, because everyone that works hard and is dedicated to not only providing for their families but also for their communities need to be treated with dignity and respect, and to definitely get a lot of value from what the unions actually offer.
Sí.
Sí se puede.
Sí se puede. As we always say, I always talk about Dolores Huerta on my podcast. I'm like, I just want to hug Dolores. I just want to, she's that fighting spirit, and she's 90 almost.
Yes.
And she's still out there, going to,
She's a rock star.
Yeah, the protests and and doing her speech and saying, we still have to come together. And she's been through it all, and I'm so glad that she's recognized for so many of her efforts in the farm workers' rights and movements, along with Cesar Chavez. But she really is the woman, as most women are, behind the great man, right? So it's like, you look at Michelle Obama, for instance, we love her. We can't talk about the new one, though.
But do you know that Dolores Huerta is the one that came up with Si Se Puede?
Right.
And she's nearly 90, yet she has such a presence. She emanates such positive energy and love. And what I love is that she's tirelessly going out to every community to urge people to vote. And that's where we can really acquire political power and financial power as well.
Exactly.
So I encourage every single person that is documented and not yet a U.S. citizen to apply ASAP.
Yeah.
And so that we can all vote together to make sure that we are represented. Yes.
Well, the political parties know that we are very relevant to the vote. So really, how we vote together is really going to change a lot of things. And now, as I say, is our time. So when we talk about the empowerment for women and, the politics and all the things you've seen, and here's, Dalia coming up now in the business and how she's going to carry the legacy, right? Two powerful women in this, area in a male-dominated industry. I mean, I love to hear how you confront that, because I think a lot of women, when they're in that type of environment, they want to be heard or they want to be seen, but they don't get that recognition. And I think it's really hard when you're the only person in the room and you don't get the respect that you say, given all that you've done. And what would you say to somebody that has that? Because you do get it, Dalia. You do. I've been through it in tech. Your mom's probably, you probably see it.
I've felt it numerous times. I mean, I joined my family's company, in the late 2009, beginning of 2010, after I embarked on a 7-month backpacking trip through South America with one of my best girlfriends.
Wow.
And I had the opportunity to visit Chile and Argentina and their amazing wine growing regions. And that was my light bulb moment where I was like, wow, I am discovering the wine growing region in South America, yet my family is embarking on a new winemaking adventure in Napa Valley. So I wanted to get involved. And for me,
because you saw it was global.
I saw it was global, and for us, it was also when we started showcasing our passions through YouTube, highlighting food and wine, and my mom being a rock star in the kitchen, highlighting worldwide cuisine, but of course with a touch towards authentic Mexican cuisine paired with our style of wine. So, this industry too, especially, is that almost 10 years ago? It wasn't as new in the social media world. You know, the wine industry was really behind. Now, it's taken a different toll.
Everybody's taking pictures of their food, their glass of wine, where they are. Wine bars are starting to become more prevalent in the Bay Area, which I really like. I was in Europe with my husband, and they're all over the place, like little bodegas.
Oh, yeah.
And you just go in there and you get your bocadillo or your little snack, and it's just a regular thing, right? And I think that would be great here too.
Oh, absolutely.
for some other, just walk in and you have a little cafe, and so anybody listening out there, you can get in touch with a distributor for wine and open up your little cafe.
The only difference is that because of the ag preserve that was established in 1968, in Napa County, it's very difficult to have a commercial business in an agricultural area unless it is to process the agricultural product that is grown there. So if you have vineyards, you can have a winery, but with a lot of restrictions. But outside of that, you can have a restaurant or a cafe unless you are in the city proper. But I want to go back to what you said a little bit earlier, that all women in sort of non-traditional jobs, we just need to be stronger, to be bolder, so that we are noticed. No, I've been called, oh, you're too pushy. Oh, and men are not pushy when
Yes.
they, no, so I don't care. So women, be pushy.
Yes.
Absolutely. And it's very important because then if you feel very strongly about something and you have something to contribute, well, nothing should stop you. So if it means to be more vocal and to not just wait for your turn, well, then do it. Be pushy.
Yeah.
Well, and going back on what you said about empowerment, and what that means for me is truly about finding your inner confidence. You know, my mom has been a fantastic mentor and example for me to shine light on what confidence is and how you can shine in whatever industry you work in. And when I embarked in our family's industry, you know, I was in my early 20s, fresh out of college, fresh out of my backpacking journey, you know, and I have a baby face, you know, and young Latina. I remember my first
Your
sales
mom
call.
has a baby face.
She does.
Look at
They
her.
They call us sisters.
It's the wine. I know. It's definitely the wine.
Aging like a damn fine wine. But it's truly about finding that inner confidence. And for me, that also meant going back to school to receive a higher education. So a few years later, I decided to enroll at Sonoma State University, and I received my executive MBA with a focus in wine business and marketing. So once I went through that program, I definitely took my confidence to the next level because I was more well-rounded, you know, in the business front, also learning everything to do with what it takes to build a brand. And that's my passions, is branding, it's marketing, promoting, all of those things. And that's why I think my mom and I make a great team. You know, two different generational perspectives. You know, she's
A very techie mom. I actually had a Twitter account before my kids yet.
oh, there you go, Mom. Okay.
There she is. Like, oh, look at she is just moving. She's like, I had a Twitter account before.
Well,
It's so fun.
I love that.
well, let me put it in perspective. My mom's only 5 feet tall, but her just energy just like breaks records.
Yeah, she's 10 feet tall.
Well, it's so wonderful to see the next generation engaged in something that I love so dearly, the wine industry. There's nothing like it in the world, and because it revolves around the kitchen. And in our culture,
And travel.
Yes,
Yeah.
and travel.
Food and wine,
Yes.
hospitality.
But what do? You want to feed everybody.
Yes.
Like I remember my Mama Chepa, my maternal grandmother, like if she would see anyone that was just even a tiny skinny, she would say, "Oh, mija, you need to stay here with us a couple of weeks because I'm definitely going to
feed you more tamales."
Yeah.
And you know, it's so beautiful. It's a universal language. Sharing
It's
food
love. It's
and,
love.
And wine, it really brings people together. And when we launched our brand against all odds, we were determined to make sure that we brought our culture with us. And I am so happy to see that my 3 children are completely bicultural. They love where we come from and they spend a lot of time there. And they also love the United States. I love my country where I come from, Mexico, but I also love my adopted country. And I want to make sure that everything that is beautiful about my heritage, you know, remains here with me in the United States. And it gives us a huge advantage.
It does.
Because don't you think?
Yes,
Being
absolutely.
bicultural and speaking 2 languages and making sure that people enjoy wine with whatever food they love, whether it's chips and salsa, popcorn and Chardonnay.
Yeah.
I mean, there's room at the table for wine.
Well,
Right.
I definitely think that what you just said, the fact, you know, being both Mexican and American, being proud of, you know, both Mexico and, you know, now living in the United States, you know, it makes us approachable, relatable, you know, and it has definitely set our brand apart because we intertwine our rich Mexican culture and heritage into everything we do. And we're proud.
Yeah.
You know, we are proud to share, you know, our humble beginnings, you know, to go from vineyard workers to vineyard owners to winery owners within less than 50 years.
Right.
But at the same time, we've broken down barriers. Those silly, elitist, arrogant barriers that have kept so many people of color from enjoying wine.
Yes.
And we make very serious wines that compete with the best in the world. Yet the way we approach and how we tell people about them is in such a warm and embracing way. And you don't need to know anything about wine to enjoy it. You like it or you don't.
Exactly.
And that has brought so many new consumers to the wine industry. Just that very simple message. Plus, not only that, you can enjoy it. It's okay to enjoy pozole with Pinot Noir. It's actually one of my all-time favorite pairings. And
Or mole with Cabernet is one of my favorite pairings.
tamales with Chardonnay, chicken tamales with Chardonnay for lunch.
Yeah. That sounds good.
Fantastic.
I know. I'm like, I just ate lunch and it was just
Don't
like,
worry, you'll be hungry in a while.
Yes.
I know Rob over here, sound guy's like, I'm ready. So I wanted to bring up a very interesting fact about the wine industry and the business, because there are two very interesting synergies that come together. And it's a program of enology and then also business, which both take a lot of mathematics and chemistry and having some financial literacy, but also just having a design concept of flavor, right? When you talk about all these things together. And one of the things I like to say to students or to folks that are in STEM programs or STEAM, which is, an art aspect to science, technology, engineering, and math, is that STEM has many avenues than just being a coder or being, in technology. You can be in the wine industry. You can be part of that industry, learning the sugar content and how to blend, right? And how to understand the growing of the grapes, right? I know some of my brother-in-law's family is probably like, oh no, you just the dirt and it all in Spanish, like you don't need that pinchy blah blah blah, it's just this, his whole family, right? They're all growing grapes. It's like, but you need that to understand if you're going into the business. And then understanding the business, being a business major myself at San Francisco State, that's a lot of math. And so you have all this math, and a lot of Latina women out there, I've heard it so many times, I'm not good in math, or I'm afraid of math, or math is not my thing, or whatever. They just don't want to touch math. And they say it's like too hard for them. But being financially literate in how your money and your spending is very important, even if you have a side hustle, to understand that. So again, having STEM, there's many paths, right? So I want to understand for the business and understanding, and when you got into it, how did you apply yourself in that? Because that is an avenue from that.
Well, the wine industry is actually 3 different businesses. If you're going to produce wines that are designated as state-grown, that means that you grow the grapes, you have that complete control from the rootstock all the way into the bottle. Then there's also the business of agriculture, viticulture,
Growing the grapes,
growing the grapes. And then there is enology, which is the chemistry of winemaking, which is mostly organic chemistry. And then there is the business. And so and then there's art, actually, because there is art. Wine is liquid art. And we were able to do it first by acquiring a property that it took us a few years, that then we were able to develop it. We did a lot of first soil studies to make sure we selected the right varietal for the area, which we are located in Carneros, which is a cooler wine growing region. So the best varietals that thrive in this area are Chardonnay and Pinot Noir. So we decided we were going to plant Pinot Noir, and then we already had a buyer, which was Domaine Chandon, and our grapes were going to be used for sparkling wine production. So while viticulture involves a lot of plant physiology and actually a lot of physics, because the way the plants absorb nutrients is actually, it's all physics. It's so fun.
Wow.
And then enology, which is the actual wine production, converting sugar by this microorganism yeast into CO2, which escapes into the atmosphere, and then into alcohol. Those are the byproducts. My brother-in-law went to UC Davis, so he has that background as well. And the viticulture part, well, we all have it because we all started working in the vineyards. And I went to UC San Diego and I studied history and literature, which actually have been quite important to the development of our brand, because you do need to know the history of this industry, but as well how it all evolved from 8,000 years ago to now, to be able to really go out and tell the story of wine.
Yes.
So we've accumulated all of this incredible knowledge, first by personal experience, but then by going to the university. And now I only took one business class, and this is when I left my job. So that was back in 1999. And there I learned that the business owner can be the business's biggest advocate. And who knows more about grape growing and winemaking and the entire business than me? So I write the press releases, and now Dalia has an actual business degree. So now we have all of those variables that make up this wine growing equation in-house.
Wow.
Nice.
Highly educated team members.
Well, and all of the key contributors play to their strengths. For instance, my dad, Pedro Ceja, also one of the founders, owners, his day job is an engineer in Silicon Valley, but we call him, the artist of our grounds, because he loves to create.
And he was instrumental in the development of our packaging of our wines. He loves history as well, and he's out there working tirelessly daily to make sure that his vision of the mission Inspire Winery is translated perfectly into the packaging and then ultimately into the winery that we'll be building.
I mean, essentially, we're a small team. I mean, the other core contributors, my brothers, my middle brother, Ariel, we call him, he's essentially our business consultant. We all wear 20 hats, but he oversees Wine Club, the new developments of our website, managing our tasting rooms. Our eldest brother also assisting with our Sonoma wine tasting location. And then my uncle Armando, our winemaker's daughter, my cousin Belen, she also studied enology at Fresno State University.
Oh, so Fresno State, hometown, go Bulldogs.
Yeah, so it's great to see truly the next generation find interest, passion, and love into this industry. And, something I get asked all the time was this ever something your parents forced or pressured you to want to do? No, actually. They were always very supportive to follow your passions, go work in an internship, travel the world. Which ultimately, for me personally, being in the wine industry is a no-brainer.
Yeah.
Being surrounded by world-class food, wine, travel, hospitality.
Right.
Hello, people. But no,
Instagram, are you out there? It's like, follow the Cejas out there.
But needless to say, though, this was never handed down to us. We've all had to work our butts off to get to where we are, and for us, we started from the ground up. We didn't have a lot of money. We didn't come from, a big law firm that wanted a hobby and, hey, let's go buy some grapes and buy some land in Napa and start a little side brand hustle. You know?
Yeah. Let's start a multi-million-dollar side hustle out in Napa.
This is, our definition of the American dream. Blood, sweat, and tears.
That's what it takes. And a lot of people say that, oh, well, they have that opportunity. But the whole opportunity here that we're talking about is familia and the strength of familia. And then also understanding how you guys or you ladies have kept the money and the wealth within the family to create that generational wealth. And that's really important to understand, is that the succession of wealth that you're leaving behind, right? Because once you've made it, you're reaching back, right, as they say, into the community. And this story is actually part of that, because I hear and I see a lot of Latinas and also Latinos that are out there like, oh, that's too hard, or, oh, it's, they stay in a comfort zone because their families don't push them, or they're afraid to let them explore, right? And some families that have this type of industry, the siblings or the kids are afraid to move out because they feel a respect, and they have to pay homage to the family, right? Because they don't want to hurt the feelings. But I think it's great that you are very much passionate about that towards Dalia to explore, and that she can do whatever, her heart's desire, but she brings it back to the business.
Well, and even now, especially with the new exciting chapter, which is in our very near future to build our mission-inspired production facility at our Napa Carneros estate.
Yes.
We will all individually have our own separate branding projects. This is just part of it. And I think that's what really makes, us shine as a team collectively, but also individually.
It's great that we're just very fortunate that our family is incredibly talented and creative. And because it is hard to be in a family-owned business. Sometimes it can be hard. But
it is challenging.
But
rewarding, but very rewarding.
Yeah. But what is great is that being able to recognize and focus on everyone's talents than the weaknesses is really also what has separated us from others. Plus, we feel very strongly about education, and it is actually not just something that we share in our culture that we all work towards the same goal. But it is so ingrained in our psyche that education is what's going to give us mobility. And I'm just very fortunate that my parents felt that way. Although they never had a chance to go to school, they lived in a very remote village in northern Jalisco, that it's not that they didn't want to, they just couldn't. But yet they dedicated their entire lives so that my siblings and I had an opportunity to get an education. And we have a saying in Mexico, trabajaron como burros. That you work like a donkey, you do whatever, you carry all the loads just to get your family ahead. And that I feel so strongly, and I'm so grateful to my parents for showing me the way that, yes, it is a little bit harder for immigrants to make it in our adopted country here in the United States, but it can still be done and it can still happen.
Yes.
So, but you know what it is, the equalizer? It's education.
Yes.
So education, it really is what allows you to go out and follow your own paths and your own passions. And I am just very happy that my children are highly educated and they are following their own passions, which just happens to coincide with ours.
Well, and something that we were talking about briefly when I was giving you a walking tour of the chapel of our Napa estate grounds, something to touch upon what my mom just said is, whenever growing up I needed a reality check, clearly, my mom would always look at me and be like, Mija, did you ever work in the vineyards like me when you were 12 years old? like your grandparents?
It's
a different struggle.
Yeah.
It's a different.
But when I hear, oh my God, it's hard, I go, you're not picking grapes right now out there in the middle of the night.
There you go.
There you go. What are you complaining about?
Right.
So I feel very strongly that I think many people that have had their life too easy sometimes become complacent. And so that, with our own 3 children, oh my God, I still remember on weekends, Pedro would always have besides going to all of their games and all of their extracurricular stuff, there was always something to do, whether it was in the winter during pruning season or during harvest. I remember Dalia following the tractor when she was 2, 3, when she could walk. And
yes, there's no such thing as retirement, friends. Not in our family.
Well, but why would you want that?
No, I'm just kidding.
Die.
But it's that work ethic. It's just that force of nature, that drive that my grandparents truly instilled on our family, which is really what made us have that drive and that motivation to succeed even further.
Well, this is what I've talked about in other podcasts, is that as first generation or even as immigrants, we have the hardest work ethic because we're taking care of extended family members, we're working 2 jobs to pay for school, we're doing something to get by. Yet that work ethic, how do you get that into a job interview or that here you're trying to say, I've done a lot of work, I can do this work, and yet you're stunted. So I just want people to know out there, I know it's hard, that if you're going into tech or into a job where, you're still working to finish school and you're doing all these things, just know it's going to pay off. And that's what I've said, because I've done it. It was really hard, but I'm able to do this now and to see you and to see other people and to get their message out there that we have the strongest work ethic. We do. We work tirelessly because we know that we're helping our families, or that we're trying to get the next generation or kids to really come up. So I just think it's really unfortunate that a lot of folks or industries don't see that. They see something else. And that's what really kind of, makes me want to do these podcasts, to hear this message that how you have made it and how other folks are making it and where they came from. It does take hard work. It really does. But staying dedicated is another one too, to that work, right?
Well, here's a message to all immigrants. We are the most multitasking people on the planet.
Yes.
Because not only are we adjusting to a new environment, having left our wonderful, very secure home, but we're also learning a new language. Mm-hmm. We also want to be part of the community, and we also want to contribute, and we are taking care of our families, and we are at the same time, yes, maybe having 1 or 2 jobs and going to school. So immigrants, the reason why this country in a relatively short period of time became very powerful, it is due to the contribution of immigrants from across the planet.
Yes.
And what I see as historian, mm-hmm. what I'm seeing now and closing the borders is really going to be the downfall of the United States. Mm-hmm. And powerful countries don't remain forever. I mean, look at Spain, because of the riches from Mexico, and England, because of all of the wonderful resources mm-hmm. from North America. So there's always a decline, and sadly the decline in this country is going to be that antagonism towards immigrants, because we immigrants are willing to work and do anything to have a better life for our family, but also to contribute. At Ceja Vineyards, we've been instrumental in raising hundreds of thousands of dollars through our quirky ways that we propose live lots that sell for tens of thousands of dollars. But also we participate with a lot of nonprofits at their events to pour our wines, mm-hmm. our time. We donate our time, our wines, financial resources, but most importantly, our time. I'm currently working with a fantastic nonprofit to really empower Latinas to go to college and to not take no for an answer. Yes. And it is so important. And time is the most valuable commodity mm-hmm. we have. Yet we have to make time available as that we understand what it takes to build a business, to make sure that the next generation of Latinas also know how to pursue their own business aspirations.
Yes, and Latinas in general are the highest in the last 2 years of creating more jobs, wealth, and businesses in the United States. So us as women, and just women of color in general, we're really excelling at being entrepreneurs and really building on that, to saying, we don't need this anymore, right? We've done enough, right? Because we're tired of the low wage, the door in the face, or just having to comply with things that don't make us happy. And I think we're very fortunate to live in a country that actually allows us to do that, where many women don't get that at all. And I think that we as women also need to recognize that, or we don't need to do anything, but I think it's amazing when we do recognize each other and we do say, hey, how can we work together? How can we help you? Or how can we
elevate you?
Yes.
How can we elevate each other?
Yes.
And inspire each other?
Yes, exactly.
And to really do things outside of one's comfort zone. Mm-hmm. The day I left my rancho, Las Flores, my grandmother said, "Mija, please remember this. It doesn't matter what you do. Just make sure you are the best you know more than anyone else in your field. And she was very real and honest. She said, it could be a barrendero, a street sweeper, but be the best one. Or the president of Mexico, but be the best one. And always ethical and always making sure that it's not about one person, you, but it's about we.
Yes.
And I take her advice very seriously. She was the matriarch of our village and an amazing cook. Mama Chepa. So I miss her, but I have her in me every day when I prepare all the dishes that I learned from her.
No, and I know there's some tamales back there. You're showing me. I know.
Fabulous tamales. And I, from my very last heirloom tomatoes of the season, because I'm also a UC Master Gardener, I actually made this very delicious and a very spicy salsa Dalia that we're going to serve these tamales with. And it is really quite delicious. I stayed up last night to make it. As well as the avena for you, because I know you love it.
Yes, we are quite spoiled
On the food.
on the food and wine. But yes, I mean, I grew up in the kitchen cooking alongside my mom and my abuelitas, and it's been so special for us. And I cannot wait to pass that on to the next gen someday. For me.
Yeah, I love doing it. And tamale season is upon us.
Yes, so this is very appropriate.
Yes.
Plus, it's a heartier meal, and I just love it once the leaves start to turn color. The pozole, the tamales, all bring them on. Comfort food.
Yes.
Amazing.
Atole.
And the Ceja wine to go with it.
Absolutely.
Let's not forget the Ceja wine.
All right, ladies. Well, this was amazing. I really love this interview talking about the history and as strong Latinas, how you're empowering other Latinas to hear your story and the avenues that they can take in their future of just following their dreams, making room for ideas and creativity, but also having confidence in yourself. And I feel very inspired by both of you because you have really the property, and I love the wine. It's so tasty.
There's more to come.
Yeah.
It makes everything taste better and life better too.
Yes. Salud to that.
Yes.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I have one more thing to add because it's really important.
Yes.
That I encourage everyone to make sure that their children go to college. It's so important because it is what's going to give those children mobility, whether they decide to stay here in the United States or go anywhere. And education is you can take it with you and it gives you confidence.
And it's something that no one can ever take away.
Yeah. And what's the nonprofit that you're a part of that helps other Latinas?
Well, I'm a part of many.
Oh, okay.
But this one was started by someone in the wine industry that sold her winery for a lot of money. And she started a foundation, and I was tapped to be a part of that. And thus far, we can't really say too much.
Oh, I see.
But we're already working very, very hard. But we're part of the Latina Community Foundation, the Hispanics in Philanthropy. We're part of so many here in Napa as well. So, do you know that giving is very empowering?
Yes.
It doesn't only feel great, but life is so much more worth living when you know that you are a vector of change for others.
Yes.
Well, and that's what I want to end on is thank you so much, Teresa, for using your platform to educate, inspire, everyone that's listening and tuning in. So we feel so honored that you invited us to speak on your awesome podcast.
Thank you. I hope that all the Latinas out there, we definitely are going to change the next, I want to say, decade. There's no denying that. So thank you, Dalia and Amelia, for having us at your winery today, Ceja Vineyards. It's beautiful. They can find you on your website at cejavineyards.com. You're also on Instagram and Facebook. And you also have some events coming, I believe.
So we have, through our dedicated Casa Ceja Wine Club, we have quarterly fiestas. We call them our pickup parties. So for for those that really want to grasp the true Ceja Vineyard experience, we invite you to check out our website, go to our wine club tab, sign up so you can come and join us for our Rockstar Fiestas, food and wine pairings.
Ooh, tamales and tacos and all.
Pozole.
Our
December pickup party actually is pozole and Pinot Noir. And we can't change the menu because then we'll have a riot. And it is so fabulous. So, but yes, become part of our extended familia. Joined our Casa Ceja Wine Club. It's quarterly, but our wines are also available at some selected Total Wine and More stores.
Total Wine. Mm-hmm,
yes.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, realistically, for our brand, we are 90% direct to consumer. So the best way to find our wines is directly through our website, cejavineyards.com. We ship everywhere. You can also sign up to join our Casa Ceja Wine Club through our website, or you can purchase directly from our tasting room.
Yes, visit us soon.
Oh, I will.
Yes, you all have an open invitation to visit us in wine country.
All right. Thank you, ladies.
Gracias.
Gracias, Teresa.